But
Right.
have you just grown accustomed to freedom of movement, considering that's kind of the way it is for athletes?
Yeah, I have. I look at someone who, I mean, if I honestly, I don't know if I ever told him publicly. I mean, I went to Boulder after,
Oh,
I
it
think my
cut out,
freshman
Mari.
year.
That cut out on you.
You hear
You
me?
went. Yep, you went to Bo for.
To transfer, I believe my freshman year. I think it's someone that wanted the opportunity. It all worked out for me, but someone that wanted the opportunity, maybe move and have that freedom. I applaud the players for taking advantage of it. Obviously, you would like to see more loyalty to one program, and things are changing. But I saw a tweet last night. Someone posted a very long tweet that basically was saying, this started way before, we had the travel ball teams and everyone in the city, all the good players play on one team, and the parents that, hey, my kid's not playing, so hey, we're gonna take him to another organization where he can be a star. This stuff started well before college athletics allowed freedom of movement. So I think it's important to understand sports is a microcosm of society. And when we're looking at sports, we can't just look at it through a thin microscope, right? We have to look at it through the whole picture of what is society like these days, how are things going, and seeing that being played through college athletics right now. It sucks. Yeah, we want to see more regional um, loyalty and things like that, but it's gotten so big that right now the NTA, in some instances, are um, some people think are self-sabotaging this portal thing, so the Congress has to come in and do something. So it's just very interesting.
I'm
Mm.
kind of. I listen. I love aluminum foil, especially the heavy duty type. So I'll put my tinfoil hat on. I kind of agree because I think they wanted Congress to step in before it was even a thing, and Congress was like, "Yeah, no." But as the money gets bigger and you start looking at people making gobs of money. I mean, maybe it's just inevitable, right? It started with the House committee, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be, and it has to be something that's going to happen, and I'm hoping it does happen. On a personal note, I filled out that settlement for that house settlement, so I'm waiting for that thing. I'm waiting for that to go
Hey,
through.
nobody told me. I feel like I missed the boat to get my 25 cents. I missed the
Man,
whole video game thing. I didn't get anything.
You were too early
yeah,
outside a
yeah,
month.
you
They
were too
cut it
early.
off.
Yeah,
Oh, thanks, guys.
Um,
You may have gotten you may have gotten a little bit of no, you may have gotten a little bit of something. I think there was something previous to the NIL stuff that they were giving out, but yeah, that thing's gonna drag. I mean that about time they get done because I mean most of it has to go to lawyers, so it's gonna there ain't gonna be much to split up for everybody else.
Listen, so I was kind of chuckling. I don't know if you were tagged. There was this huge thing. I'll send it to you. It was a coach. I think he's from here, not here is in Nebraska. He was giving the whole synopsis on what's wrong with kind of Nebraska defensively, and he tagged me, and he basically was talking about just men, right? And I couldn't help but to chuckle because I go back to all the discussions you and I had early on about. Do you remember which front it was? It was the tight front, right? Which is basically
Right.
a version of what happens when you use the mint. It's a for people out there listening. It's a way to play defense. And I'm like, we've been talking about this for like 10, 12 weeks. It has some limitations. You see a lot of teams playing against spread. Saban is a big fan of like this whole tight front stuff. Um, it has some drawbacks. You think that's something that with a 4-2-5 or what Nebraska wants to get into defensively, you could see them utilize? Or you think odd is odd and even?
I don't see them. I don't see them being a tight front team. I see them being, I wouldn't say a strictly, but on base downs, par downs, first and 10, second and 6 plus. I think they're gonna be in a four-man front. Now, when from watching the San Diego State film, they do get into some odd structures on third down,
Yeah.
I've been probably looking and finding anything about Saban's system probably since shoot, I would say 2011, 10, right? And so when you see the evolutionary system, which is used mostly you can see through Dan Lanning, they use a tight front in situations, right? They're going to use it versus 12 personnel, but when they get to 11P in those spread sets, they're really in over and under sets. And that's what I tried to get people to understand from last year. Like, you're not marrying yourself to being in a tight front. Like Dave Aranda marries himself to the tight front, right? He's going to tight front, whether it's spread, whether it's 22 personnel. That's what he does, right?
Setting edges against mobile quarterbacks.
Exactly, right. And it, like you said, it has its drawbacks. But for Nebraska and what they're looking at, I don't see them. I don't foresee them going into that I structure on those par downs, those base downs. See them more so, like I said, 4 down on first and second down, and then get some 3-man structures on third down.
When you're looking at, sorry, Robbie.
No, go for it.
When you're looking at like the way that football is played, most people have now kind of not resigned. They prefer functional mobility, right, from the quarterback spot. There isn't a ton of like just true drop back. I'd say there's probably 5-6 teams maybe that are good at it, and this is across college football. Certainly not in the Big Ten, but
under center.
Yeah, when I just talk drop back football, 5-7 step drop, vertical in the passing game. Is there a way that you'd like to play defense, given how college football has evolved?
I would say it would have to be a mixture of playing some type of 3-man structure and a 4-man structure. Now it's the body types, right? You have to have D linemen, especially interior guys, right? That can play in a 1 gap and also in a gap and a half defense. Meaning, right, we're gonna play lighter box, and that's a big crave around, right? The Saban, Lanning, smart system is their big quotas. We're gonna do more with less. Right, so we're gonna have a 315-pounder that can play the A gap and also the other half of the B gap with either his body or the offensive lineman's body, and that's be the ideal world that you have to live in, right? Is be able to have those structures where you can play on par down, you can be able to line up in 3-man structures, play 4-man structures, send simulated pressures, right? When you get into those muddy areas, 2nd and 5 situations, and then on 3rd down, get to your exotic looks, right? Load up fronts to the field and boundary, sending different type of stunts at the offensive lineman and really breaking down protections. I mean, if you look at any defense coordinator at any level, that's Flores, Fangio, anyone at any level right now, a top defensive coordinator, that's what they're doing, right? They're being able to get into 4-man and 3-man structures on par downs while also getting to their, blitz packages, exotic packages on 3rd down. And that's the recipe right now to be able to stop offenses until they really go back to really pound the football, which I think the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see the elevation of the run game and probably getting back to more under center drop back pass game, I think, with how lighter defenses are getting with their boxes and thinking they can play, hey, we're going to play 5 guys to cover 7 gaps, right? And then we'll force the ball outside, right, type of mentality. So it'll be interesting to see as the schematical chess match goes back and forth with the offenses. But I definitely think defensive coaches I think they won 2025, 2026. I think it's been some really, really good defense on all levels and found some really good examples of good defensive coordinators.
Interesting. Advantage defensive guys the last 2 years?
I think so. I think
anecdotally, it does seem like scoring's down.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just me with being being pissy about Pat Mahomes and kind of how his downfall's been the past 2 years. But I think the objective of what defense want to accomplish against quarterbacks that want to push the ball downfield has forced them to play higher shells, 2-man. That's why you're seeing a lot of this 3 high, whether it be 3-man or 4-man structures, where they're forcing you to take checkdowns. We're seeing a lot of guys go 20 for 29 for 198 yards, right? That's 80s football, right? You get what I'm saying? That's not the high flying 25 of 35, 300, all that type of stuff. So we're seeing less of that, more of those type of stats. And you're creating, I think, better quarterback play in that too, because you're making guys make better decisions. So I think the game is getting better. Going on a tangent there. I think the game is getting better in that sense because defensive coaches have caught up to the offensive coaches.
Why do you think it hasn't? Because this is actually something I talked about with DB, I think, a lot over the last year or so, especially in the NFL, is why do you think they haven't started to switch more to, like you were saying, some of that power running game faster, where you look at it and you go, hey, if they're playing these guys, these 3 and 4 high safeties all the time, there's obviously an advantage there. Why do you think that that transition hasn't happened a little bit quicker?
People lie. I think people say they want to win football games, but I think they want to display their identity. So there's a lot of coaches that's going to live in, hey, we're a spread team, we do X, Y, Z. But the best coaches, right? You see in the Campbells, those type of guys, right? We're going to do whatever it takes to win, right? Win that ball game, win that moment, win that situation. So I think that's the biggest thing you're seeing with why guys haven't done it. But again, it's a trickle down effect right now in the NFL. More 12 and 13, 21, 22 personnel starting to be more prevalent on par down. So I think you'll start seeing that in college more. And again, it'll change the recruiting landscape and what guys are looking for offensively and so on and so forth.
The team that comes to mind, like when I think Rams, like 12 and 13 personnel, is 2023 Michigan.
Yeah.
Like if you just ask me off the top, like, okay, a lot of counter, the kind of the little gap stuff, multiple tight ends, the shifts. If it's a copycat league or a copycat kind of theme, do you understand kind of where Nebraska or Coach Rhule, he's talking about with this is, Coach Wade and kind of the offensive evolution in terms of the run game, where he kind of said out loud, he's like, look, we want to run more counter. We want to get out and do X, Y, and Z with more penning and pulling. You think you think the start of how they want to play?
You might as well call it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's exactly what he wants to do. And people don't understand when a coach says we want to have a running offense, right? It doesn't just change the type of quarterback you have, right? You have to have offensive linemen that can pull, have on the move awareness to be able to pick up guys as gaps change. And so when you look at Deep Wade coming in and him talking about what they did at Georgia Tech, I think that's got to be something that Rhule has to implement and get the right guys in there that can do that. I think the kid from Iowa State, whether they swing them at either the right guard, he can be and move. I think that's
breaking up just a little bit,
just as much as the quarterback position.
So when you look at a guy like Babalade, or Black, or some of the offensive linemen, there's some athleticism involved. Do you think the body types change?
Oh, we losing?
Yeah, it changed. I think you have to get more guys that are agile that can move in space. You hear me?
Yep, you're back now.
I'm good.
You're good there. Say something now.
I should be good now.
Yep, there you go. You're back.
All right. Yeah. So I think the way the guys you get change, right? You have to get more agile guys, get them moving on. They can move on the run. Have a good football IQ, right? We talk about all the fronts and stuff changing for defenses, right? That things happen post snap, so you have to have guys that can move well in space, move well enough in space, and then still be able to identify guys out in space and make those key blocks. So yeah, I think there's some things that have to change as far as the guys you get at the quarterback position, but also at the O-line position.
So when you're looking at some of the guys they've brought in on the O-line, does that give you an indication of what you think Nebraska looks like offensively next year? Or do you get more from the transition into a dramatically more mobile quarterback?
Again, I think it's a mixture of both. I think, again, when you have more of a mobile quarterback, you have to have a mobile offensive line, right? Because now you're going to be doing, even in the pass game, right? I would expect more sprint outs, cutting the field in half, dash passes and things like that, right? Where you can get the quarterback out on the outside and give him opportunity to throw the ball to one or two receivers and make it a simpler read. So you have to have guys that can be able to move. And then again, going back to it, talking about these moving fronts and how fronts like to play nowadays, it's just important that guys are able to match that on the other side of the ball. So I think it's I don't think it's any indication. I think if Rhule's saying that he wants it done, and I think in this point with the selection of assistants and, obviously the track record and saying, how many guys are going in and come out through the past 3 to 4 years, that's probably obvious on the forefront of his mind. So I think in this time right now, right, it's I wouldn't say next year is a do or die season for Rhule, but I think it's a very, very strong indication from people on the other side to say, hey, I don't think this experiment's going to work if things don't go the way, it should, right? And the schedule is the schedule, right? And I think all Nebraska fans, the team, the program, the coach are looking for is competing at a high level against every team on that schedule, regardless who the opponent is. So, we talk more about that as we get more close towards the season and all that stuff. But obviously, I think if he's asking for it and he's talking about it in the press conferences and stuff like that, this is going to be something to be a huge emphasis for him.
So how would you want to play up front with fundamentally or technique wise to combat college football or offenses today? Would you want to be lighter, quicker? Would you want to be you can't? Well, some can have it all, but if you have to start with a basic ingredient, what would it look like?
Very technically sound and strong interior D lineman. I think that's where it starts at. I think you can mold edges a little bit
at the point of attack. So you're not talking about on the move.
I'm talking about three techniques and in.
On you. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 techniques and in. I think those will be the guys that have to be the building blocks, right? That we have to have for the guys we want. We have to have a 75 to 80% hit rate on, right? And we have to identify those guys early. And they may not come into the program looking like what the end product is going to be, but we know they have the skill set or they have the traits that we can mold and build upon to create the type of player we want on the inside. And then from there, I would say, you're going to be looking at the outside edges too and kind of what those edges look like. But again, I think if you have to be able to play a mixture of heavy personnel, and I say heavy, that's the thing people think, when people play a 3-man front, that you have to have like a 330 nose nowadays, right? Most noses right now are about 315, 310, right? They're not the Tony Siraguses, right, of the back in the old day. So, you got to be able to identify guys that you can put weight on, that have good hip hinge, explosiveness through the hips, good flexibility and mobility through the lower half, especially in the ankles and knees, and can be able to handle those large blocks that they're going to take on inside against those guards and center. So definitely on the interior, 3 techs and in, that have to be a spot that we have to hit on as a program.
That's interesting. Edge rushers get all the money, and as do corners. And you're going, give me the 2 guys inside, whether you're a 3, a 2-eye, a shade. Yeah. I get it.
They're going to allow those guys to play ball. You know what I mean? If we can just run up the middle, the ball ain't getting to the outside, right? And we ain't getting into pass rush situations.
But I just think it's interesting because everybody wants to spill.
Yeah, for sure. I think it comes down to obviously the flashiness of a sack, how impactful that is, and the allure of that. But I mean, as a coach, and you're a coach too, there's things at film we get way more excited for than average fan will. But I will love up a defensive lineman in our film room for a -1 tackle. Shoot a tackle at the line of scrimmage where I'm shot shed, I get extension, I'm making a 1-more tackle, doing everything that we've coached and drilled throughout the week. That gets me just excited as a sack. And again, it's about setting up the opportunity. I can't get the 3rd down and get to our exotic packages if we're not winning far down. So we're not winning 1st, 2nd down. So you got to have guys that can stop the run, regardless how important and how flashy the pass is and all that stuff. We got to have guys that can play gaps and gap and a half. I mean, that's for me. I'm big on that Pete Jenkins type of style of defensive line play where we're gonna try to control as much up front, take us some stuff off our back end guys, and just control gaps as much as we can up front and make plays at the line of scrimmage or beyond as we can.
You can hear my smile because I'm not blowing our own horn, but for as creative and for what we can do out of our odd front, and we can play a couple of different coverages, and that stuff's cute. But if you give me I will do cartwheels over a nose that can 2-gap, right? Where it just changes everything that you can do defensively. I don't care if it's odd or even. You give me the guy in the interior. So when you said anything from 3 on in, I'm like, yeah, your world changes dramatically with a guy that cannot, because number 1, they're hard to come by, but 2, when they're good, they got chances they're like unicorns.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm tickled right about now.
MRI, have you moving off the defensive line and into that second level? Obviously, Nebraska felt like they needed to shore some things up at the linebacker spot, bringing in 3 guys from the transfer portal. If you were Nebraska, based on what you saw this year, what would you have been looking for from the linebacker spot when you're going to look for new players?
You're gonna have to. Okay, so the difference now with the type of backers you had right before and what you may be looking for, and the three. Okay, I'm gonna call it a stack. Some of the stack, the tight stuff. It's more one gap, right? Fast fitting, right? Kind of a flowing defense. So the guys you need to have, because you're basically building. That's the thing about the 3-man front. You're basically building a 4-man front post snap. It's just we're not showing where that three technique, or okay, I'll say 3 technique, where the bubble's going to be at, right? The open B gap is going to be. So you can get a little thicker backers, maybe shorter backers, right? That may not be. You may not be looking for them to play as well in space and maybe in coverage, right? But with this 4-2-5, right, you're gonna have opportunities where your backer is gonna be more stack and fit type players. Because now we have 2 open gaps, right? We have an A and a B, or A and a B gap in our over or under front that has to be covered. And I don't know the ins and outs of Oryx's defense, right? But for the most part, most teams, kind of fit off the running back and single back, right? So we're not going to have just one gap
Yeah.
regardless. We're playing quarters, we're playing cover 3, we're playing now cover 1, and man coverage may get a little more. Hey, we want to be penetrators and play hot to our gap. But in those zone schemes, when you're playing a more 4-man front, you have the flexibility to have stack and fit backers, because you're going to get an insert somewhere, right? Your third insert is going to be either that boundary safety, right? It could be a boundary corner. It could be the field safety or the field nickel, right? So it just changes how you're getting the fit. But I definitely think with all the linebackers, just looking briefly at them and kind of some of their film, they get more, I think, instinctual, right? Linebackers, in the sense that understand how gaps move and playing off of them. And they're veterans, right? So you're expecting them to come in with the knowledge and of understanding how to play in that type of system and play behind maybe a D lineman that has the freedom and flexibility to cross face and work into that A gap from his 3 technique spot. So now I have to work off of them. So I think all those linebackers they brought in can contribute. And I think there's still guys on the roster right now that they'll be here from last year that can contribute. And I'm looking forward to those guys taking another step and really learning this defense and improving upon their performance this past season.
You could definitely tell they're focusing on runner hitters, like little lighter, athletic.
Yep.
Like there's definitely a theme in terms of who they're bringing in.
And I think too, those guys have to be able to cover tight ends. I mean, I think last year was a really good year for Big Ten tight ends. We saw a kid from Michigan, 2 guys from Michigan really play well. A guy from Indiana, my goodness, I can't remember his name, but he had a highlight show. He had a highlight show a couple of weeks ago.
And didn't start playing until the second half of the season, really, from contributing. And he's turned out.
Yeah, probably get his name called on draft day. So there's some good tight ends that you're going to face in the Big Ten. I mean, again, this is the most NFL-like league as far as just the play overall everywhere that you see at every position. And I think Rhule understands that. And hey, I cannot. The biggest knock, and I played for Bo, and we all know the knock on Bo was that he didn't make any changes, right? And I can't fault Rhule ever, from what I've seen in his tenure. He is not afraid to look in the mirror and say, "Hey, I thought otherwise, and this didn't happen, and I need to make a change," right? Or, "Hey, I maybe had the feeling this was going to happen. I let this happen. This is on me. I need to make a change." And I salute that. That's nothing
I'm telling you, man,
frown upon, in my opinion.
That's why I rock with him.
Yeah.
Like, if nothing else, the self-awareness and the ownership, you're always going to give yourself a chance. It doesn't guarantee results.
Yeah, it doesn't guarantee
it. You do give yourself a chance.
Yeah. Yep. And I think and I'm hoping that it all works out and it gets Nebraska back into the right side. But at the end of the day, if it didn't, and we're looking back at senior, I can't fault him for that. And like I said, I would applaud that. That's something we all can do a little better of, have that self-reflection.
Michael Rose-Ivey ends with a wheezy moment. It'll all work out. It'll all work out.
That is our guy, Michael Rose-Ivey, MRI. Appreciate the time. As always, great stuff. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys, man. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have a good weekend.